Hey guys, my name is Shai and this is Evermind Astro. This video is about your moon in Libra. This may also resonate if you've got your moon in the 7th house. And so I want to focus this particular video on the emotional processing of moon in Libra, right? Because we could talk about the moon for hours and hours and hours, but I want to focus on emotional processing. So this is the second of the air moons, and it's worth noting that the air moons are it's a little bit of an unusual thing because the moon and your emotions and your inner space, right? That's tends to be more watery. The moon is, ruler of Cancer and all of that stuff. So to have the air energy, the mind energy, the mental energy in your moon sign, it blends your mind and your thoughts and your emotional body together. It is a blending of mind and body. And this is really emphasized with Libra in particular because Libra is the whole thing of the balance, right? So you guys are going to, in your lifetimes, become the master of balancing mind and emotion. There's really an emphasis here actually on the body as well. If you imagine the scales of justice, the sign for Libra, the symbol for Libra, if you imagine that you have your mind on one hand and your emotions on the other hand, well, what's the middle part? What's holding up the scales? That's actually your body. So you need to come into balance between your mind and your emotions, your thoughts and your feelings. You're balancing those out inside of your own body. So it's important actually not to forget about the body in this equation. And if you have some earth energy in your chart or first house placements or Aries placements, that will help support you in this. If you are lacking earth and Aries in first house placements, then this might be more of a challenge for you to get, and you can also look to your Mars placement as well to get centered in your body, right? And the word actually is more about centering in your body rather than grounding into your body. Of course, grounding is important for everyone, but in terms of the emotional processing of moon in Libra, we want to talk about centering in your body, finding that centered space inside your body. And then of course, looking to your thoughts and your mind on the one hand, and then looking to your emotional body and your feelings on the other hand, and giving respect to both, letting both weave back and forth, right? And finding the sweet spot in the middle. And I would actually say finding the sweet spot or the Goldilocks zone, where it's just right. That is your mission here, and that is where you're really going to thrive, finding that sweet spot. So, because Libra can actually have a certain amount of volatility where you swing wildly from one way and then you swing wildly to the other way, right? The pendulum could be swinging madly, but that's not what Libra, like that is a facet of what Libra can do, but that's not really what Libra is going to want to be, right? Libra wants to be finding the balanced state, finding, and I almost feel like I want to stay away from the word balance here because sometimes it's like, what does that even really mean, right? And I think in this case, we want to focus more on centered, being centered and finding the sweet spot or the Goldilocks zone. So I don't know, I'm just feeling something here. I'm feeling like there might be a sizable portion of the people listening to this video who also have Scorpio placements. And I actually want to take just a minute to kind of talk about that, because if you happen to have Libra and Scorpio, that is very interesting, because Scorpio, of course, brings the volatility, brings the intensity, and that tends to be something that Scorpio is good at. And as long as things don't get too out of control, right, Scorpio can really thrive in that place of intensity and depth. So if you have both Scorpio and Libra placements, things can get, or, if you have any kind of combination of Scorpio and Libra energy, things can become bigger, right? They can become more expanded. And so if you have a combination of Scorpio and Libra energy, it's like your capacity or your challenge to find that centered space and to find that sweet spot, you're going to have to become a lot more expanded. You're going to have to allow yourself to go into these moments of intensity, into these depth experiences, and then come back into the center, or being able to center everything. It's, I don't know, the feeling of maybe it's easy to find your center when you're dealing with a smaller amount of energy or a smaller amount of volatility. But if you got Scorpio going on, then you have a much broader, bigger, more intensive amount of energy, and it's going to be more challenging to find that centered space. So just something to consider there, I guess. And Scorpio, I think, tends to come up because I've actually really found that the people who are watching astrology videos are highly likely, disproportionately likely to have Scorpio placements. So just some food for thought there. Okay, so coming back to how do you, with your moon in Libra, how do you find that sweet spot, find that centered space? So besides just getting centered in your body and connecting with your body, it's likely going to be very important for you to take a step back for just a second, right? Take a step back. And what that means for you, sometimes that could be going on a week-long retreat into the wilderness, right? Sometimes it could mean just taking one deep breath, right? What that means for you, it doesn't so much matter. Take as much of a step back as you need, but there's going to be kind of like there's going to be a big benefit for you in taking a minute to just draw yourself out of the action, draw yourself out of the volatility just for a minute and check in with your center, right? You might call that checking in with your heart. You might call it getting grounded into your body. You might just call it stepping out of everyone's craziness for a minute, right? But you're going to want to take a step back, take a step inward and get centered. And there is a feeling here of withdrawing yourself from other people's energy, especially because with Libra, there can definitely be an emphasis on how you are relating to others and other people's energy. And I don't want to get too much into it, but of course, with any Libra placement, sometimes the individual self can become lost. And because there can become this over focus on the other person or the other people, because Libra Libra cares about what's going on with other people, right? And with a Libra moon, you might really passionately love making sure that other people are doing well, and you might really care about checking in with other people's emotions, or depending on how your moon is placed and depending on you as a person, right? There's so many different factors, but maybe you really care about people, taking care of people in a pragmatic or grounded way. So there's definitely something to do with you and the way you are looking to others and taking care of others. And, with anybody with Libra placements, you got to think making sure that you're not becoming a martyr, that you're not sacrificing too much, and that there's not too much emphasis on the other person. When Libra energy is functioning at its best, there's going to be that sweet spot between serving others and taking care of yourself, right? It's going to be a really good balance. And of course, you might go one way or the other with that in your life. So anyway, that's why I want to focus more on how do you get centered in yourself, because there might be a tendency, a desire with Moon in Libra to, especially if you're in some kind of, intense interpersonal situation. Perhaps you're disagreeing with someone, or perhaps other people are having a conflict. You could be that kind of middle child type of situation where you're mediating between other people. That could easily come up with Moon in Libra. There can be a desire to kind of impose tranquility or to create diplomacy, right? To create diplomacy, because Libra is a very diplomatic energy, right? You're trying to help other people find their common ground and to help them find their balance. And that is something that you're going to really excel at. But before you really have a lot of success and mastery in helping other people, become civilized and diplomatic, you're going to want to know and really master how to do that inside of yourself. And so that is taking that step back for just a second, checking in with your heart, with your core, with your inner being, with your soul, whatever that means for you, and finding that sweet spot and finding your balance point, kind of like riding a bicycle, right? You want to be able to stand balance on that really narrow bicycle tire while you're still moving forward. Is that type of finding that balance. But of course, while you're riding a bicycle, you can still swerve and turn and do all kinds of things, right? It's not a rigid thing. And that's the thing about finding this center point or finding this sweet spot, is it's not static. The Libra energy is actually always moving. those scales might always be wobbling a little bit, moving and flowing like a boat on the waves of the ocean, right? Up and down, up and down. There is a flow. There is a flow involved in balance, right? There's a flow involved in balance. It's not something static. It's not something rigid. So there is this flexibility and fluidity to how you find your center point, how you find that sweet spot. It is a moving target. And so, coming back to finding that sweet spot between your mental body and your emotional body. Possibly, and again, it depends on the rest of your chart. If the rest of your chart is very water heavy, then you might be more inclined to take your emotions seriously first, to feel through things and to make decisions as a feeler, right? If you have a lot of air energy in your chart, besides your moon in Libra, you might be more inclined to take your thoughts more seriously and to be more of a thinker. It would be really, I mean, this is beneficial for everyone, but I think it's particularly relevant here for moon in Libra to consider whether you are primarily a thinker or a feeler. A thinker or a feeler. When you have to make a decision, especially if you have to make a decision under stress, are you going to make your decision based on your feelings or based on your thoughts? Right? What's your impulse? What's your instinct? And perhaps for Moon in Libra, perhaps that might not feel so clear cut. Perhaps you're thinking, I kind of do a little bit of both, right? I take both into account. I take both into account. And if that's what you're saying, if you're going, no, I'm pretty much in the middle there between basing my decisions on my thoughts or my feelings, then you guys have already reached that point of, if not total and complete mastery, you're coming into that place of wisdom, knowing that your thoughts don't have all of the answers. Logic doesn't have all of the answers, right? But neither do your feelings. Your feelings aren't necessarily the best thing to listen to, because sometimes your feelings can be totally crazy and irrational, but also sometimes your feelings bring you what it is that bring you to what you really desire, right? It's important to pay some attention to your feelings because they tell you what you actually want and what you actually value and what you actually care about. So if you find yourself being primarily a very thinker type of person, or you're finding yourself being primarily a very feeling type of person, you probably will go through experiences in your life where you are learning how to grow in the other direction and then to find that sweet spot between your thoughts and your feelings. And in terms of emotional processing, right? Like, how do you chew through your emotions? How do you get through that energy? And how do you kind of resolve yourself and resolve your emotions and then move on with your life, right? How is that working for you guys? I actually think that Moon in Libra has the potential anyway. Whether this works for you is going to depend on many factors, but I feel like Moon in Libra has the potential to actually resolve their emotions quite quickly and with a lot of ease. All it takes is that stepping back and into that centered point, and into the body. Then there's this feeling of like, oh, none of this really needed to be that engaged with, right? I think I can actually just, when I take a step back, everything just kind of settles right down. And there's actually this really profound sense of peace and tranquility and serenity, and it's very beautiful. And that's something I haven't really talked so much about. The Libra interest in beauty, and beauty is a very like, what is beautiful? Well, I mean, what does it mean to you, right? That's really all that matters here. And I will say that having, like with Libra, similar to Pisces, having a beautiful environment, right? Having a beautiful home, being in nature, or being in a city landscape, an urban landscape that is really like got really interesting architecture and everything is nice and clean and everyone is being, polite and civil and all of that. Any kind of environment that you find beautiful, whatever that is for you, that's going to be very supportive to you, and it is going to help you remain in that centered space. And of course, this is human life. You can't always find yourself in a beautiful, tranquil environment, and we all have to learn to live with that and deal with that. But it is something to keep in mind with your moon in Libra, that beautiful surroundings, a beautiful atmosphere is very supportive to your to your emotional processing. And so that's the kind of thing where you can take your home environment, especially because this is the moon, right? That's to do with your inner sanctum, your inner sanctum. So creating a beautiful home is not superficial or shallow. It can really do wonders for your mental health, right? It can do wonders for your mental health and your ability to feel comfortable and calm. So it's not superficial or shallow to want to create a beautiful environment, at least in your home life, and potentially to move somewhere, whether it's moving out into the wilderness or into the country or into a really nice part of town that you really like to be in. These are things that are, they make sense for you to do because they're going to help you feel centered inside your own body. So that's basically how I'm feeling. Moon in Libra, right? A little bit about the emotional processing of Moon in Libra is that, you know, finding that sweet spot where you take into account your thoughts and your feelings, getting centered inside of your own body, and taking a step back when you need to gain that perspective and to regain your natural sense of equanimity would be a really good word for this, right? Your natural sense of equanimity, because that is your birthright. That is part of who you are, to be in that place of equanimity. So you just need to allow yourself to find that. And then there's this feeling of your emotional state kind of clicking into place quite easily and giving you this very, 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 very clear frame of consciousness, this clarity, okay? This clarity. That is your natural state. And of course, having a clean and clear environment will support you with that. So I'm going to leave you guys there. I got lots of links down below. You can check me out and I'll talk to you later. Bye.